So moving along, who's paying for all this? We're all paying for all this. We are all paying the US taxpayer, are footing the bill for the Ukrainian military in a war in which victory is left undefined, yet in which victory is unattainable, because we know that it means, according to Zelensky, retaking all territory up to Crimea. It even appears that the counteroffensive that they're preparing is frightening officials in the Biden administration, because they can't achieve all the gains they're speaking of. But Zelensky came to Washington in November, or was it December of last year, and demanded Patriot missile batteries. And he got them. These cost $1.1 billion each. Each missile costs what? 12 billion, 20 billion, 20 million to fire. It takes months to train 100 soldiers to operate one battery. And Russia found where one of those launchers was. It wasn't hard to do. And they targeted it with a Kinzhal hypersonic missile. This is video of that attack. And it doesn't look like the Patriot battery came out too well. There's no sound. This was filmed by someone who just happened to be watching in Kiev, and who later paid a heavy price, because filming anything that the Patriot missile launchers do is illegal now under Ukrainian law, under Ukrainian democracy. Okay, so it's launching these. That's about enough missiles in 2 minutes to have cost US taxpayers $158 million. And that's what we're paying for. And they didn't appear to work. So let's go to my the thread that I did on this attack. And I pointed out that while after $158 million was wasted, and this battery was targeted, and the fact that it was targeted in itself is a failure, because it means that Russia can continue to target these batteries and find them wherever they go. Struck by hypersonic missile. Hypersonic missiles, very hard to intercept. What happened? The Pentagon went to CNN. They've been going to CNN to tell the American public the official version, and CNN will say, according to US officials. And who did they go to? Natasha Bertrand, who was promoted to CNN after being at Politico, pumping out the phoniest, discredited stories on Russiagate for years, as basically a channel for the intelligence agencies and the Pentagon, including that 51 intelligence former intel officials said that Hunter Biden's laptop was fake. So they turned to Natasha Bertrand to save face. 4 days ago, CNN reported the following, which came courtesy of Jake Tapper. We could play that video.
And we're back with our world lead now. U.S. officials say Russia
March
tried
14th.
but failed to destroy a U.S.-made Patriot air defense system missile in Ukraine. It's arguably Ukraine's most prized piece of American military equipment. It's fitted with powerful radar to detect incoming targets at long range. Let's get right to CNN's Oren Lieberman at the Pentagon. First of all, Oren, were they trying to defend?
This is the guy who replaced Barbara Starr as the
defense
ultimate
system or defense
stenographer
system
for the Pentagon.
missile? And what more can you tell us about the flubbed Russian attack?
Jake, we know that the Russians were trying to shoot or target the Patriot battery itself, likely its emissions radar, and we'll get to that in 1 second. Let's go to where this story started. Last week, for the first time that we know about, Ukrainians successfully used the Patriot missile system provided by the U.S., Germany, and Holland to target an incoming Kinzhal or Killjoy missile, a powerful Russian hypersonic missile, essentially an air-launched ballistic missile. It's a significant event. It's the first known successful use of the Patriot system by Ukraine, and crucially, the
was
first
not
known
successful.
interception of this hypersonic system, demonstrating the capability. Now we've learned from 2 U.S. officials what it is that the Russians were targeting when this missile was intercepted. And Jake, we learned the Russians were targeting the Patriot system itself, trying to take out one of the most advanced pieces of equipment we've given to Ukraine.
Oren, how did the Russians detect the Patriot system?
It's likely, according to these officials, that the Russians were able to detect the emissions from the radar itself, to detect.
Okay, so it wasn't a failed attack. I mean, what if they've detected the radar, they can continue to attack it again and again and again until they waste the most expensive piece of US equipment. It's very unlikely that a Patriot missile intercepted a hypersonic missile. That was on May 14th. I've been saying March, but that was May 14th. I think May 16th was the date of the successful attack. And if we go back to that thread, we can see one tweet later, or actually in the first tweet, according to Natasha Bertrand via the Pentagon said that it was damaged or destroyed, and that they may have to take it out of service, or the Ukrainians will fix it themselves. I don't know how they're going to do that, but this is sort of a disaster for the U.S. taxpayer, for Ukraine's deterrence, and it follows the successful attack by Russia on a NATO arms depot. So Russia knows where NATO's arms are coming in. They know where the Patriot batteries are. And the U.S. refuses to negotiate a solution to this war, where basically we might as well just take bags of cash from our own pockets and burn it ourselves instead of sending it to Ukraine for Russia to burn. Because this is what happened in the Khmelnytsky region of Western Ukraine after it was hit by a long-range cruise missile. I mean, this is a giant mushroom cloud. And so what was in there, what's suspected of being there, are the depleted uranium shells for the British Challenger tanks that were supplied by the UK. So Ukrainians are understandably concerned about high levels of radiation being in their environment. So thank you, NATO, for that. What else could produce such an explosion? This war is it's going great for everyone. It's going great. Do we really want to keep paying for it? Well, shouldn't this not be an election issue? By the way, what does Marianne Williamson have to say about that? I know she's for arming Ukraine.
Well, I hope to
ask her. I hope to ask her in a debate that will be hosted in a major forum.
What RFK Jr. has been saying, I gotta say, is great. I mean, what he's been saying about the proxy war, he's been saying all the facts that we've been pointing out that get censored in establishment media. But it'd be wonderful if he was allowed to debate Biden to raise all these points, because he'd be bringing to light all these facts that simply get censored, and he has a real handle on them, on how this was provoked with NATO expansion and the placement of offensive missiles surrounding Russia, and the U.S. role in the proxy war after 2014 with the coup. And of course, all that background gets ignored. And yeah, I mean, there does seem to be a little bit of an opening now, although it could all be a deception. But, China sent a peace envoy this week to Kiev, like whatever you call it. I forget what we're supposed to call it, Kiev.
We could only call it Kiev before 2022. That was only allowed then.
We have to say Kiev now. Okay, so so China sent a peace envoy, and there does seem to be a split inside the U.S. government. I mean, that was made clear when Milley said that we should have negotiations. He's the chair of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, and people like Tony Blinken were very resistant to that. But then again, Milley's kind of caved since, and he's been pretending as if Ukraine has a chance to win, and has sort of backed down from his calls for negotiations. So it's hard to figure out what's going on. I mean, what we do know is that when Trump refused to say that he wants Ukraine to win, that he just wants to stop the war, that triggered a bipartisan freakout. So we know at least on that issue, there's consensus in, you know, a large part of the bipartisan establishment.
And in the meantime, the U.S. puts Ukrainian civilians in harm's way by putting Patriot missiles, allowing Patriot missile batteries to be placed in civilian areas, as Amnesty International previously reported about other military installations and military positions. Here's a Ukrainian civilian who filmed the attack on the Patriot battery, who has to publicly apologize for publishing the video and breaking the law. I didn't even know it was happening. Many Ukrainian civilians have been forced to go in public and apologize for publishing illegal footage. And what happens to those Patriot missiles when they're flying everywhere? I mean, we saw what happened in Dnipro, where a Ukrainian surface-to-air missile, a Soviet-era surface-to-air missile, fell or intercepted, or hit a missile, and then redirected the missile to an apartment complex, destroying a civilian apartment complex. But here's what looks like shrapnel from the Patriot battery at the Kiev Zoo. I mean, there's worse footage of this, but this is the aftermath. So, I mean, if the U.S. really cared about Ukrainian lives, they'd just wrap this up with a bow right now, because I don't believe they're going to be retaking massive amounts of territory. I don't know when the offensive is coming, but the U.S. is going to set a hard stop on that offensive for a campaign season when it really heats up.
Absolutely. They're seeing what they can accomplish now, how many bodies they can sacrifice, and what that can accomplish. But it's been made clear. I mean, there's been multiple articles now in the establishment media saying that, you know, if Ukraine can't show success, then there's going to be more pressure on them to wrap it up. I thought the whole point was to defend Ukraine no matter what. This is making clear that actually really success in U.S. eyes means bleeding Russia. And if Ukraine can't show that it can do that, then the whole show will be called off and it's time to pack it up and go home, which speaks to the whole point of this proxy war to begin with. It's not about defending Ukraine. It's about weakening Russia. And to underscore that, you know, Ukraine's been begging to join NATO, but NATO still says, no, sorry, it's not going to happen. That was recently told to them again, which shows how, again, Ukraine's been used as sort of a toy to basically draw Russia in and to bleed it as much as could be done. And now that it's running out of, you know, it's running its course, U.S. is running low on weapons. There's only so many more lives you can sacrifice. It does seem like we're heading to an end. And on the issue of the Patriots, I think I saw Assad Abu Khalil point this out, which is that in Yemen and Saudi Arabia had Patriot missiles, but they couldn't stop like these like Houthi rockets from hitting their own territory with the Patriots. So if the Patriot can't stop Houthi rockets from hitting Saudi Arabia, do we really think they're going to stop Russian missiles, precision missiles, and hypersonic missiles?
Well,
they're very likely.
They were Houthi. They were old ballistic missiles.
Yeah,
the Houthis had, and that was part of the calculus of the United Arab Emirates leadership in meeting with Bashar al-Assad, an ally of Iran. And that was the calculus of Saudi Arabia moving towards peace with Iran, is that if the US can't actually provide them with a protective umbrella, then they're going to have to actually engage. And so China comes in and fosters the engagement. What is the US gives you Patriot batteries. China gives you diplomacy. Eventually, I think Ukraine is going to have to cede to reality at some point. But for now, more bloodshed is on the horizon.